Hey, welcome to your Anatomy and Physiology lab. I'm Dr. Jen Peek, and I'm going to walk you through the skin model and what you need to know for lab. If you were in one of my sections of the A&P1 lab, you should have some fill-in-the-blank notes in front of you. You will see them on the screen as well. And I'll provide most of the information you need, and we'll fill in those blanks together as we go. The skin model we're using now is a little different than the model we used previously. So if you see any of my previous videos where there's a purple model used, this model is going to be different and the numbers are going to vary as well. We're going to start with the overall organization of the skin. Then we'll look at the functions of the skin, the 5 layers of the epidermis, the dermis, and accessory structures, and then finally the sensory nerves. So let's get started. Your skin is your largest organ. It makes up about 15% of your body weight, and the skin has 2 main layers. The first is the epidermis, which is made primarily of stratified squamous epithelium, and the second is the dermis, which is a deeper connective tissue layer. Underneath the dermis is the hypodermis, also called the subcutaneous tissue. Your hypodermis is connective tissue, but it is not technically part of the skin. It is associated with the skin and helps anchor it to the underlying tissues. A good way to remember this is that hypo, if you think below or beneath, like medical terminology, for example, hypoglycemia, which means you have low blood sugar, below or beneath hypo. And since hypodermis is below the dermis, it makes the name pretty easy to remember. The skin is usually about 1 to 2 millimeters thick, although the thickness varies depending on where you are looking. The thinnest skin is about 0.5 millimeters in thickness, and that is found in the eyelids. The skin is much thicker in areas that receive a lot of friction and pressure. The thickest skin is found in the palms of the hands and the soles of the feet. You also have relatively thick skin between the shoulder blades. So when you think about the palms of your hands and the soles of your feet, remember that these areas need extra protection and cushioning because they experience a lot of contact and pressure. So let's discuss the functions of the skin. Your skin has a lot of functions, so don't think of it as simply something that covers your body. First, it is your first line of defense against trauma and infection. Your skin acts as a physical barrier. It keeps things from entering the body, and it is resistant to abrasion and penetration. If you scrape your skin, it can heal relatively quickly. Epithelial tissue in general is very good at repairing itself, and your skin is particularly good at recovering from everyday damage. Your skin also helps keep microorganisms under control. The surface of your skin is slightly acidic, and sweat also has antimicrobial properties. These characteristics help keep bacteria and fungi in check. This is important because there are microorganisms living on your skin all of the time. Under normal conditions, your skin helps keep that population under control. When the normal balance is disrupted, you may be more likely to develop things such as athlete's foot or other fungal infections. Another function of your skin is protection from the sun rays. Your skin helps prevent ultraviolet radiation from damaging the tissues underneath. It also prevents absorption of water. Think about what would happen if your skin simply absorbed water every time you took a shower or went swimming. Fortunately, your skin has structures that help prevent that. The outer layers of the epidermis contain keratinized cells, and there is also an epidermal water barrier made up of lipids and proteins. Lipids are fats, oils, and waxes, and they are hydrophobic, meaning they repel water. So you can think of this barrier that is helping keep your water from the outside staying on the outside and water on the inside staying on the inside. Your skin also starts vitamin D synthesis, specifically vitamin D3. You need exposure to sunlight for your body to begin this process. Think of sunlight as turning on an alarm clock. The sunlight activates a precursor that allows your body to process vitamin D. So your skin isn't just a protective covering, it is involved in an important vitamin producing process. Your skin is also your most extensive sense organ. Why? Because your skin contains many different types of sensory receptors that detect different types of information. These receptors allow you to detect things like touch, pressure, pain, temperature. The purpose of having all of these sensory receptors is protection. If you touch something extremely hot, you want to know about it immediately so that you can pull your hand away from what could be a serious injury. Your skin also plays a major role in thermoregulation, or regulation of body temperature. One way it does this is through your sweat glands. When you sweat, heat is carried from inside your body to the surface of the skin. Once the sweat reaches the surface, evaporation produces additional cooling. Think about getting out of the shower. The room might still be 72 degrees, but you often feel much cooler because water is evaporating from your skin and taking heat with it. That's evaporative cooling. Your blood vessels also help regulate body temperature. They undergo vasodilation, where the vessels themselves get larger, or vasoconstriction, where they get smaller. When you're hot, blood vessels near the skin can dilate, bringing more warm blood towards the surface so heat can leave the body. When you're cold, blood vessels can constrict, reducing blood flow to the skin and helping to conserve heat. Your hair can also provide some insulation, and your erector pili muscles can cause your hair to stand up. That's what gives you goosebumps. The erector pili muscle, also known as the pileo-erector muscle, doesn't provide much useful insulation for humans today, but it is considered a vestigial structure, meaning it is a structure that has been retained from our evolutionary history, but has a reduced function compared to our ancestors. You can see it in other animals today that it's still being utilized. So it will allow the hair to stand up, causing the animal to look larger. It's also a signal of fear, so it's a physical sign that something is in distress. It can generate a little bit of heat, and that might be why it has evolutionarily not been selected off yet. And finally, remember that the hypodermis, which contains a lot of fat or adipose tissue, also helps insulate the body and provides a place for energy storage. So your skin has several ways of helping maintain your body temperature. Your skin is also involved in communication. Think about facial expression, facial color, and other changes that communicate information. Changes in skin color can even provide clues about health. For example, someone who is blue or cyanotic may have problems with oxygenation or circulation. Yellowing of the skin or jaundice can be associated with problems involving bilirubin metabolism and liver functioning. Your skin also provides storage of nutrients, particularly fat in the hypodermis. So if you're following your notes, your functions include protection, thermoregulation, communication, and nutrient storage. Now let's move to the 5 layers of the epidermis. Remember, the epidermis is the superficial epithelial layer of the skin. On your model, these are numbers 1 through 5. We're going to start at the surface and work our way down into the dermis. So from superficial to deep. That means we'll start at number 1 and finish at number 5. Number 1 is the stratum corneum. This is the most superficial layer of the epidermis. It consists of about 25 to 30 layers of dead, scaly, keratinized cells. These cells are packed with keratin. When you see the word keratinized, think about keratin, the tough protein that allows and helps make the hair and nails strong. Your stratum corneum is a very important layer because it is resistant to abrasion and penetration, and it helps prevent water loss. These cells are going to eventually shed off from the surface. Remember that the cells are being produced deep in the epidermis, and they gradually push their way towards the surface. As they move up, they are going to become more keratinized, flattened out, they'll get flat, and then they will die and eventually flake off. Number 2 is stratum lucidum, also known as lucidum. This is a translucent layer. The important thing to remember about this layer is that it is only found in thick skin. So where do you find thick skin? It's the palms of the hands and the soles of the feet. The cells in this layer no longer have nuclei or organelles, and that makes sense because these cells are further away from the source of nutrients and they're basically in the process of dying. So if you see stratum lucidum, think thick skin, palms of the hands, soles of the feet. Number 3 is going to be stratum granulosum. This layer is about 3 to 5 cells thick. The cells are becoming flatter and they are producing more keratin. You will see the term keratinocyte. Don't let that word intimidate you. Break it down. Keratin tells you that it is a cell that contains keratin, so it has keratin filament associated with it. Cyte means cell. So keratinocyte is simply a cell that produces and contains keratin. Another important structure associated with this region is going to be the epidermal water barrier. This barrier will contain lipids and proteins, and it will help repel water. Remember, lipids are fats and oils don't mix well with water. So the epidermal water barrier helps keep water where it belongs. Number 4 is going to be stratum spinosum, also known as spinosum. This layer is about 8 to 10 layers of keratinocytes. The deeper cells in this layer are actually capable of mitosis. And remember, mitosis is a process where you can make new body cells. So where one cell will become another cell. Don't confuse mitosis with meiosis. Mitosis produces only the body cells, while meiosis produces sex cells. So that would be like your eggs and your sperm. So the deeper cells here of the stratum spinosum can continue to divide and produce new skin cells. As these cells are pushed up, you're going to see that they will eventually stop dividing and they will begin producing more keratin filaments. Those keratin filaments, that's what will make those cells become flat. So eventually they become hard and they start to push towards the surface. And finally, we are to number 5 of the epidermis. This is going to be stratum basal, also known as stratum bacilli. You can also see that it's called in some texts stratum germativium. I like to think of this as my basement layer of the epidermis because it is the deepest layer, and basement starts with a B and bacilli starts with a B. And so stratum bacilli makes sense to me, or stratum basal makes sense to me because it's the basement layer. Now, stratum basal is only 1 cell layer thick, and it is going to contain typically cuboidal and low columnar stem cells, along with some keratinocytes and some melanocytes. Now, the cells here will be resting on that basement with a B membrane, basement membrane, it's bacilli. And so this is an important area because those stem cells are going to be continually producing new cells through mitosis. So let's quickly review the epidermis from top to bottom. So number 1 was stratum corneum, number 2 stratum lucidum, only in thick skin, palms of the hands, soles of the feet. Number 3, stratum granulosum. Number 4 was stratum spinosum. This is where those deeper cells can undergo mitosis. Number 5 was stratum basal or bacilli. It's the resting on that basement membrane. And so you should be able to remember these in order. If by chance you struggle with remembering things in order, you can always look up mnemonic devices. And so there's like a new mnemonic device that says, "Come, let's see sun burned." And so there's stuff about like cows grazing and whatnot. But anyway, find you a mnemonic device. Just Google epidermis mnemonic device and you will find something. And it'll give you the first at least letter of each one. They're all going to start with stratum because it's stratified. There are layers to them. So that makes sense. And then the next word would be the word that you might have to find a mnemonic device for. Now let's move into the dermis. The dermis is a deeper connective tissue layer of the skin. On your model, the dermis is identified as Roman numeral 2. So you may see the dermal region surrounding the structures below the epidermis. The dermis varies in thickness. So it's about 0.2 millimeters thick at the eyelids and about 4 millimeters thick at the palms of the hands and the soles of the feet. The thickness in these areas makes sense because the palms of the hands and the soles of the feet receive a lot of pressure, friction, and mechanical stress. The dermis contains many of the accessory structures of the skin, including blood vessels, sweat glands, sebaceous glands, hair structures, muscles, sensory receptors. So let's go through some of those now. Let's talk about the accessory structures. So your accessory structures, when you look at this, we're going to first look at number 6. Number 6 is the adipose tissue or fatty tissue. This is located in the hypodermis. Remember, hypodermis is not technically part of the skin, but is associated with it. Adipose tissue provides energy storage and insulation, and it also provides cushioning. Now let's look at the structures associated with blood supply. Number 7 on your list is going to be your vascular papillary of the dermis. The dermis needs blood supply. The blood vessels in the region provide nutrients and oxygen to those surrounding tissues. So there is a subpapillary venous plexus that you'll see at number 8. And the veins, remember, carry blood away from the tissues. So this is part of the blood supply that carries blood away from the dermis. Then you also have an arterial plexus. And so there's that subpapillary arterial plexus at number 9. Arteries carry blood to tissues. So number 9 ends up providing the blood to the dermis. Let's look at some sweat glands. Number 10. Number 10 on your list is going to be the duct of the sweat gland. It's also known as a sudoriferous gland, and that duct is going to be the passageway that carries sweat towards the surface of the skin. Number 11 is going to be the glomerulus of the sweat gland. The glomerulus is going to be the coiled portion of the sweat gland, and that is going to be where sweat is produced. So you have the coiled gland at number 11, the duct at number 10 that is carrying the sweat to the surface. And remember, sweat helps with thermoregulation, so that's going to help out with evaporative cooling. Now, number 12 is going to be a sebaceous gland. You may hear this called an oil gland, but we are going to be scientific with this, and we are going to end up calling this a sebaceous gland. Sebaceous glands produce sebum. Sebum is an oily substance, and so sebum helps lubricate the hair and the skin. Number 13 is the growth and differentiation zone. This is associated with the hair and contains the matrix, the medulla, and the cortex. This is an important region of hair growth and development. And now let's look at the specific structures of the hair itself. So 14 is the papilla of the hair. The hair papilla contains blood vessels and provides nutrients to the hair for growth. Number 15 is the papillary artery. That's going to provide blood to the hair. And then the vein at number 16 is going to carry blood away from the hair. Number 17, you have the external root sheath. And so that's going to be the area that has the epithelial structure surrounding the hair. Number 18 is the internal root sheath. So also epithelial, and it's going to be located closer to the hair itself. And 19 is the root of the hair. So the portion of the hair located below the skin surface where it anchors there. Number 20 is your hair shaft. So this is going to be above the surface. So it's going to extend above the hair. So remember, root is below the surface, shaft is above the surface. Number 20 is your erector pili muscle. It's also called your hair erector muscle or pileo erector muscle. This is a small, smooth muscle attached to the hair follicle. When it contracts, it pulls the hair upright and produces goosebumps. Now we're going to finish with sensory receptors. Remember, your skin is the most extensive sense organ, and these receptors help you detect different types of stimuli. We will go from deep toward superficial. So we'll start deep in the skin, the deeper layer, and then we'll work our way to the surface. So deeper down, you are going to end up having things that are capable of detecting pressure. So you have Ruffini's corpuscle at number 23. You will have the Pacinian corpuscle at number 24. On some models, the Pacinian corpuscle looks a lot like a pepper. And so if you think of Pacinian starting with a P and pepper starting with a P, it might be a memory trick for you. Now, you can also have tactile receptors. So the bulb of Krauss is tactile, which means it's for touch, And so is Meissner's corpuscle, along with Merkel's disc. So all of those will end up being tactile, meaning that they're for touch. Now, Meissner's corpuscle is especially highly concentrated in areas that are very sensitive to light touch, such as your fingertips. So your fingertips, your lips, even parts like the face, the nipples, the genitals, all of those end up having lots of Meissner corpuscles. So if you think about being like barely touched somewhere, that typically like where you're very sensitive, that will end up having a lot of Meissner corpuscles. And what you'll find is where there are a lot of Meissner corpuscles, there's usually not a lot of hair. Now, Merkel's disc, it's going to also detect touch and light touch. And then you have free nerve endings, which are going to be number 26. Merkel's disc, by the way, was 27. Free nerve endings are number 26, and so that's going to help you out with pain and temperature. And that makes sense that they are very close to the surface of the skin. So if you touch something hot, remember, you need to be able to know immediately so that it doesn't affect the underlying tissues, so that it doesn't damage the tissues deeper into your core. So you don't want those deeper layers of skin being damaged. You don't want your muscles to be damaged. So you got to be able to pull that hand away faster, so it makes sense that there's nerves close to the surface that will detect both pain and temperature. So let's review those real quick. Number 22 is bulb of Krauss, it's tactile. Number 23 is Ruffini's corpuscle, it's for pressure. 24, Pacinian corpuscle for pressure. 25, Meissner's corpuscle, which is tactile, very light touch, remember, sensitive touch. And then number 26 was free nerve endings for pain and temperature. Number 27 is Merkel's disc, which is also tactile. Before you finish this lab, make sure you can identify the major layers of the skin and the structures on the model. Know that the epidermis is epithelial tissue, the dermis is connective tissue, the hypodermis is primarily adipose and other connective tissue and is associated with the skin but not technically part of it. Know the 5 layers of the epidermis and their orders from superficial to deep. Remember that stratum lucidum is only found in thick skin. The deeper cells in stratum spinosum can undergo mitosis, and stratum bacilli rest on a basement membrane. Also know the major functions of the skin, so especially with protection, thermoregulation, sensation, communication, and storage of nutrients. And make sure you can distinguish the sensory receptors. So when we think of tactile, we're thinking of Krauss, Meissner, and Merkel's. And then when we are thinking of pressure, we're thinking of Ruffini and Pacinian. And that free nerve endings will end up detecting pain and temperature. As always, don't just memorize the names. Try to understand why the structures are located where they are and what their function is. Many times, if you can figure out that information, it's going to help you remember it. Be sure to review the corresponding pages in your lab manual and study the terminology before you come to class. And I will see you next time.